Well, hello and welcome to the Friday episode of Stand Up. It is the 23rd of December as I am recording this at 4 a.m., getting it up hopefully by the time that you get up on Friday the 23rd. Thank you very much for joining me. Thank you to everybody, over 55 people at one point, I think, were joining me at last night's stand-up subscriber-only hangout. We had a great rockin' holiday eve. A lot of laughs at the hangout last night. Thank you to everybody who came out. It was a lot of fun. We met some new people, a lot of new people actually, that listen, and we really had a great time, and I always do. But had me out late, had a couple drinks, and here I am now to make sure I get this up. A great episode for you coming your way. I've got both S.E. Cupp and Glenn Kirschner joining me. I think you're really going to like it. And because it's the Friday show, I just kind of jump right in. No news, just get started. And so let's do it. But a reminder, of course, I can't do it without you. So thank you very much for pressing play, for writing a review, and hopefully subscribing to the show. No better Christmas present for me than to see new subscriptions coming in, knowing that I can rest easy and keep doing this and keep posting these conversations each and every day for you. Go sign up now, standupwithpete.com or patreon.com/Pete Dominic. All right, well, coming up, I've got a really fun conversation, interesting conversation with S.E. Cupp of CNN and the New York Daily News. We talk about the You're Not Alone challenge that she's challenged me to make a video for, as well as dispensing with Mike Pence, Donald Trump, reviewing January 6th committee results, and more. I think you're really going to like my conversation with S.E. Cupp. It's always great. But first, I've got the great Glenn Kirschner, who is, of course, a 30-year federal prosecutor, a legal analyst for MSNBC and NBC News. He's got a massive following on social media, on Twitter, and a huge popular YouTube channel. He makes videos every single day. Go check him out on YouTube. Just search Glenn Kirschner at Glenn Kirschner 2, ladies and gentlemen. Justice matters with Glenn Kirschner. It's time for the Kirschner Report.
But I've got, all these Christmas carols running through my head, like, Trump nuts roasting on an open fire, Jack Smith nipping at your nose, right? I just, I can't. Beginning to look a lot like Rico. I mean, there's so many.
Use these, please. Permission, please. That is hilarious. You have to, oh my God, you have to do a video of the old school when they sold Christmas albums, then it comes scrolling up, and you can be all dressed up in like Yule outfit and be like, other classics, like,
yeah.
Oh, we should do it.
All right, let's get started officially right now.
There he is, Glenn Kirschner. I've watched all of his most recent videos, and I'm going to do a best of, and then we're going to talk about his favorite Christmas carols. Hi, thank you.
Pete, how are you?
I'm good. I'm very happy that I get to talk to you. I just watched all your videos. I've got lots of questions for you, sir. Like, let's jump right into it. Can we jump right into it? Like it's MSNBC or something?
We can, and I just finished my video for the day. It'll be posting in the next half hour or so, and I'm trying to bring my blood pressure down because it's a doozy.
Well, give me a sample. The people that are going to watch that probably want to hear this first. So what is this one about?
So this is about one of Donald Trump's corrupt White House lawyers, Stan Pacentino, representing Cassidy Hutchinson and telling her to lie to the J6 committee to protect Donald Trump.
His name, first of all, his name is Stefan. You said Stan. And when I said
Stan, it's Stefan. You're right.
Well, I know that only because when you made your video, yesterday, you talked about this a bit, and you kept saying Stefan in what would seem to me kind of a condescending way. You go, Stefan.
Yeah.
You do not like that name?
I'm only making fun of him because he is a corrupt POS.
Well, hold on a second. You have to prove to me, sir, counselor, that witness tampering is a thing that prosecutors actually go after. And you have to prove to me and the rest of the jury here in the shed, which is mainly just the dog tonight, that what he did would be legally considered witness tampering, because that's what you're claiming, yes?
Yes.
Okay, so he told Cassidy Hutchinson, just tell him you don't recall anything. And she's like, but I do recall things. And he's like, just tell him you don't. that to me, based on what I've read, is the worst thing he did.
Well, and if you read the transcripts that were released today of some of Cassidy Hutchinson's testimony, he would say things to her like, no, you're just a secretary. You don't really know much of what goes on around here. And when she said, well, what I know is Tony Ornato told me on the day it happened that Donald Trump tried to strangle, her word, the driver of the beast, the presidential limo, when he refused to take him to the Capitol to head up the insurrection. And her corrupt lawyer said, no. We're not going to talk about that. That would be urging her to lie under oath to the J6 committee. That is one of the most egregious ethical transgressions for a lawyer. That gets a lawyer disbarred, and it should get a lawyer prosecuted for urging somebody to commit perjury. Why do you think the J6 committee referred Donald Trump for a conspiracy to make a false statement? That's what they call perjury when you do it in front of Congress. So, you know what? The courts over and over and over again, Pete, have said over the decades, even the centuries, that witness tampering strikes at the very heart of the integrity of the criminal justice system. It's a cancer, because if you can't trust witnesses to come in and tell the truth about the crimes that they observe, the whole system falls apart. When I was a prosecutor and I found out some of my witnesses were being tampered with, I jumped on that with both feet. I ran to judge's chambers as quick as I could get there, and I got an arrest warrant. My beef with DOJ right now is they're not doing that. That's a huge concern. Frankly, it poses a danger to witnesses when you don't jump on that with both feet.
His name is Stefan, whatever his name is. He was the former White House ethics lawyer.
Irony much?
He is he's a Trump loyalist, and he tried to get Cassidy Hutchinson, who, let's remind people, was Mark Meadows' main deputy. So she was around him all the time. She heard a lot, if not most, of what Mark Meadows heard. And she was conflicted of what she should tell the January 6th committee when she was subpoenaed to testify. At first, she was conflicted, I think, at the end of the summer. And he kept trying to tell her, listen, just do this, and we're going to play down your role, and you could just tell him that you don't remember, and certainly don't tell him that thing about Donald Trump trying to strangle a Secret Service agent. But how is that witness tamper? Can he get away with that? Can he legally say, I didn't tell her this, I didn't tell her that?
You can't legally get away with it. That comes down to a credibility determination. Who are you going to believe? If you're one of the 12 people in that jury box judging the facts, because jurors are judges of the facts. Judges are judges of the law. That's the difference. Are you going to believe Cassidy Hutchinson, or are you going to believe Stefan Passantino? Because here's the other thing. Cassidy Hutchinson, I'm quite sure, and there's some suggestion of this in her transcripts, has real-time communications with other people talking about the fact that she's trying to get out of this attorney-client relationship, Pete, that was foisted on her. She didn't want this lawyer. And when she asked, who's paying your legal bills? You're representing me. He wouldn't tell her because it was a Trump-affiliated group paying the legal bills. Why? Because he wasn't really representing her. He was representing Trump's interests. And let me finish up with this, Pete. If I don't recall was a perjury-proof answer, for 30 years, I never would have successfully prosecuted anybody because people do recall. And when they say, I don't recall, it's a lie. And you can prove the lie by calling other witnesses to say, I talked to Cassidy Hutchinson and she told me about this, or she sent emails or text messages or DMs or private chats, there are 1,000 ways. It's like when Bill Barr testified before Congress. When he was asked by Kamala Harris, did anybody at the White House, including the president, ask you to investigate somebody? I don't know. I have to grapple with the word suggest. I'm trying to. And then he's like, I don't know. That was a lie. That was perjury because he did know. And of course, we gave him a pass the way we've given so many corrupt Trump officials a pass.
I hear you. Now I hear what you're saying in terms of the legal precedent for not being able to, quote, not recalling something. In Bill Barr's case, maybe it's easier to get away with, but in another person's case, and I mean that because there's not necessarily a chain of actual text, couldn't you show someone, a witness, text who's saying, hey, I don't recall, and you show them, all right, well, maybe you'll recall this text exchange that you had 3 months ago with this person or that person, if you had that evidence, but I don't think we've seen that evidence. And by the way, why are we only just hearing about this after J6 committee concludes their hearing? CNN, I think, got this reporting about Cassidy Hutchins and Stefan, the former White House ethics lawyer who is forcing or pressuring her to not say these things, funded by, who knows, Trump and his, I don't know. Why are we just learning this? And is it different when you have the actual evidence of an actual text chain? Does this remind you of anything?
Yeah, but let's remember this, Pete. First of all, I don't know why we're just getting it, other than the J6 committee had difficult and challenging tactical decisions to make. How much do we throw into the public square? We don't want it to be too much that it dilutes our focus on the crimes of Donald Trump to try to overthrow our democracy. So, I mean, a real curiosity along the same lines is when Jamie Raskin said, therefore, we are criminally referring Donald Trump, John Eastman, and others.
And others.
And others? I don't want a cliffhanger. I want to know who the heck they are right now.
Yeah.
They obviously made a tactical decision that if they laid out everybody that they're criminally referring, it's going to dilute the main message. So that's probably why they chose to present some of Cassidy Hutchinson's information and not others during the public hearings. But here's the other thing, Pete. Every single day, we make criminal cases with the testimony of witnesses. Cassidy Hutchinson will take the stand, will testify about what she knows, what she heard, and what she saw. Donald Trump can't take the stand and testify, I didn't say any of those things, because Donald Trump can't testify credibly ever. Stefan? He's not going to take the stand when he's a criminal defendant. He's going to keep his corrupt trap shut and count on the extremely high burden of proof of beyond a reasonable doubt. So Cassidy Hutchinson's testimony will be cross-examined. Why did you at first, hedge? And why were you equivocal? Because I had a corrupt lawyer telling me to lie. And he was being paid for by a Trump-affiliated organization. And I was scared to death. Even my father abandoned me because he was a Trumper. My aunt and uncle abandoned me because they're QAnon freaks, which is what she said. I mean, this woman is a gosh dang hero. Right. She really is.
Right. She's a linchpin. She's, quote, star witness that everybody's saying. I'm just super confused as to why we're just seeing this now. I've seen screenshots of the transcript of her deposition, and the January 6th committee had that. So it's like, why didn't they ask her about her conversations with Stefan, and why was Stefan never subpoenaed by the January 6th committee? He would seem, and maybe I'm missing something. Maybe he was.
Well, remember, 30 some odd witnesses were subpoenaed, and they pled the fifth.
But was he? Do you know if he was?
I don't have a complete grasp of all of those witnesses who pled the fifth. This stuff is just kind of being released on a rolling basis. So I don't know if they reached out to him or not, but it's a fair question. Here's the other thing. You do have to remember that the J6 committee doesn't have the tools that the Department of Justice and a federal grand jury have to litigate whether a privilege is viable or not, right? So that's why when witnesses come in and they say, what state do you live in? Fifth. Well, you don't have a privilege against self-incrimination regarding, your home of residence or your age, as I think Roger Stone wouldn't even answer that question. He pled the fifth to how old are you?
Yeah, so did Charlie Kirk. I noticed that, which was really weird because he pled the fifth on everything, including his age. But then they were like, where do you live? And he stated where he lived. I was like, why does he tell that? Anyway, so go ahead.
But the J6 committee, they don't have the tools available to test those privileges in court in real time. But the federal grand jury and the federal prosecutors do. So somebody pleads the fifth and it's a BS fifth. You walk right into Chief Judge Beryl Howell's chambers or closed courtroom. you litigate it, you get a ruling, you don't have a fifth sport, go back and testify.
Okay, so the big, I think, question I wanted to ask you, and you've made a lot of videos on your YouTube channel explaining this in detail, but the January 6th committee versus the Department of Justice. Department of Justice, of course, oversees, the Attorney General of the United States oversees the special prosecutor?
Special counsel.
Special counsel. His name is Jack Smith.
Yeah.
And so what's the difference between Jack Smith and Robert Mueller in terms of what they're able to do? Obviously, Trump was the president when Mueller was investigating him, and that's fraught with all kinds of things. He's the current president. I don't know if that's the thing that changes, but does Jack Smith and his special investigation, he's a special counsel, he has the tools that you're talking about that Congress and the January 6th committee don't. They referred four instances. They made four criminal referrals basically to him, right? In his investigation. How am I doing? Do I have this right?
You're dead on. You're dead on.
That's because I watch your videos. Now go ahead and tell me what Jack Smith has that's different.
They different than the J6 committee?
Different than Mueller and the J6 committee.
Okay.
Doesn't Jack Smith have a whole bunch more resources? And isn't this so much different than Mueller, but we're all jaded because of Mueller?
Yeah. Yes and no. We have hero fatigue because
yes.
Bob Mueller was my old boss, right? He taught me how to be a homicide prosecutor, and he taught me how to run the homicide section at the DC U.S. Attorney's Office because I took over when he left. I think the world of him. But I think his hands were tied in part, and his hands were tied in two ways. One, we have this stupid ass OLC memo that says you can't indict a sitting criminal president. Right. The president can shoot somebody on Fifth Avenue, and you can't indict him while he's in office. That takes us one giant step in the direction of being a banana republic.
Right.
But Bob Mueller was bound by that memo, so he couldn't indict Donald
Well, he
Trump.
thought he was bound by that. He
was bound by that memo because Bob is a company man. Bob is a soldier in the best sense of that word, pulling, Marines out of the line of, he had to follow the DOJ policy, which is you can't indict a sitting criminal president. He had his hands tied in another way, probably his feet tied together with his hands, by Bill Barr, who lied about his report, as was ruled by federal judge Reggie Walton. And so he was fighting on all fronts. Here's what he did, though. Let's not forget, and then I'll compare and contrast him to Jack Smith. What he did is in Volume 2, Pete, he meticulously documented as many as 10 felony federal obstruction of justice crimes. I think Bob, being as old school as he was, using the Watergate affair as a frame of reference, because when the evidence was disclosed of the tapes, even the GOP marched on the Oval Office and said, "Sport, you got to resign." I'm paraphrasing. I don't think they called Richard Nixon sport, but I call all nefarious actors sport. So I think he believed, I'm giving Congress the goods. Of course, they're going to impeach and remove in a Senate trial a criminal president. Well, that was a miscalculation. They didn't do it. So what's different about Jack Smith? Jack Smith ain't going after a president of the United States. He's going after a private citizen, and he has all of the power, authority, and ability to indict that private citizen, even though he was a former president of the United States. And then I don't want to get down into the weeds, but if you read the two special counsel appointment letters, the one for Mueller and the one for Smith, they're both a page and a half long, very short. Bob Mueller was designated to investigate all things Trump-Russia, right? Coordination between Trump and the Trump campaign and Russia and Russian officials. And he could prosecute cases as necessary to develop that investigation. Right. His mandate was not prosecute everybody that you find committed crimes in connection with the Trump-Russia affair. Jack Smith basically has free rein. Investigate and prosecute what you find. Now, Merrick Garland will still be the one, once Jack Smith decides who to indict and for what. Merrick Garland will have the authority as the Attorney General to either accept or reject that recommendation. Here's the one thing I'm pretty confident of. I will say Merrick Garland turned out to be too much judge and not enough prosecutor at the end of the day. And I think he's still a good, honorable, ethical man. I don't think he was the right man for the moment, it turns out, but I don't think we knew that up front. I think once he entrusted this investigation to Jack Smith, he's not going to say, oh, and now that you've conducted it fully, ethically, professionally, and aggressively, I reject your recommendation. I don't see Merrick Garland going like that. And let me just finish with who Jack Smith is. First thing I did was I picked up the phone to one of my former homicide prosecutors who left my office and went to work for Jack Smith when he was the chief of the Public Integrity Section at the Department of Justice. Remember, Jack Smith and his team prosecuted Republican politicians, Democrats, Virginia Governor Bob McDonnell, Democrat Senator from New Jersey, Bob Menendez, John Edwards, right? Democrat Senator and presidential candidate. He prosecuted an Arizona Republican congressman. He's prosecuted a CIA officer. I mean, he prosecutes without fear or favor across party lines. And here's what I like most about him. And he went to The Hague, going after some of the worst criminals our world has, which I think is a good preparation for going after Trump, quite frankly. But here's what I really like about him. He doesn't win all his cases. The reason I love that is because he's willing to take the really difficult, politically charged cases, even if at the end of the day he doesn't win a conviction. He's in the fight, and that's what's most important.
So I'm walking through the woods yesterday with Zatz. I walk with Zatz on Wednesday. He's my good friend. We take our dogs. We walk in the woods, and we talk about everything, but we usually get to politics. And I try to sound smart, as I always do. That's my whole thing. And I go, listen, I'm thinking of you. I started channeling you. I'm like, this guy Jack Smith. He's not taking this case, the highest profile case of his career, if he's not going to be able to. Or he's not going to prosecute Trump or anybody else if he doesn't have a case. That's prosecutors don't take the case if they don't think that they can win. And Zatz just kind of like made noises. He didn't say anything because he doesn't know what the hell he should be listening to me for legal analysis. But I'm asking you that same question. Was I right? Like Jack Smith isn't taking this on if he doesn't think he can win?
He is taking it on to aggressively and fully and honestly investigate it and make a decision whether the evidence supports an indictment and a trial. The standard that the Department of Justice sets is if you have a reasonable likelihood of success on the merits, meaning you believe you have enough admissible evidence to win a conviction, then you indict and you go to trial. But here's the thing, and this is why, when people say it was a miscalculation for the January 6th committee to make criminal referrals of Donald Trump to the Department of Justice because they're politicizing everything. Well, first of all, it's going to be politicized no matter what this decision they make. The Trump loyalists are going to scream it's a witch hunt. But more importantly, if they didn't make the criminal referral, Team Trump would have been yelling full exoneration because Congress didn't refer me to the Department of Justice for prosecution. But here's why it's really not politicizing anything. It's an independent branch of government, the legislative branch, doing an exhaustive investigation on the highest profile crime in our nation's history, an attack on the Capitol, an attack on the peaceful transfer of power. And they reached conclusions that the evidence proves crimes. You have to make a criminal referral to the Department of Justice. You can't ignore that or decline to do that. I think that would be an abdication of the legislative branch's responsibilities. But Jack Smith will not for 1 minute say, well, the J6 committee referred Donald Trump for prosecution on, let me just pick one of the crimes, obstructing an official proceeding. I investigated it exhaustively. I don't think there's enough evidence to bring it. But because the J6 committee recommended that I prosecute, I'll prosecute anyway.
Right.
I mean, that's asinine.
Right.
It's just asinine.
So speaking, wrapping it up, the J6 committee has wrapped up. Their executive summary was supposed to be out today. As far as we're talking on Thursday night, it's still, I think, not out. Is it?
And in the printer, we're hearing.
Yeah, they're out of paper. But what do you think of what they did. To me, it was phenomenal. I watched every single minute of it. I thought it was riveting. I thought it was produced so well. I thought it was comprehensive. I thought they made and built a case on TV, basically, watchable on TV. Then you go and you watch some of these other proceedings that you've been a part of for your whole career. They're pretty fucking boring to watch because there's all kinds of legal shit. Like I'm watching Carrie Lake's thing, and it's like all these like long moments of just trying to find a file and stuff. Like that's not good TV. I don't want to watch that. They made this so watchable. They had scripts, they had videos, they had all of the witnesses, almost all of them Republicans, many of them who worked in the Trump administration. What do you have to say, Glenn Kirschner, at the end of the January 6th committees, their conclusion, even though that executive summary, I guess is going to be like 800 pages, is not out yet? What grade do you give them? How do you evaluate what they did?
Yeah, they get an A+. They get extra credit. It was brilliant in form and substance. The form is all about presentation and TV and all that. And it was great. It was riveting, right? But the substance of it is what's most important. And the reason the substance is so compelling is because the entire investigative team, the behind-the-scenes team that did all of the investigating, I mean, God bless the members of Congress who are on the committee. They were brilliant, but it was a whole investigative team behind the scenes. And that team, Pete, was all former federal prosecutors, including some of my former homicide prosecutors. And the head of the investigative team, Tim Heaphy, was one of my former RICO partners, one of the best RICO prosecutors the Department of Justice has ever had. And he put together that investigation brilliantly, the way prosecutors would investigate a gang or a RICO organization or a criminal enterprise. And that is one of the reasons the evidence is so compelling, not just the presentation of the evidence.
What's going to happen next? We head into a new year. We've got a new House majority with Republicans being in charge of investigative committees, all of the different committees. But you've still got Jack Smith. You still got Merrick Garland. You still got Joe Biden. And that investigation, Jack Smith's investigation, we don't know when that will include, and we don't know if there will be indictments regardless of the criminal referrals from the January 6th committee, right? We don't know.
We don't know. But if Jack Smith is the without fear or favor kind of prosecutor that his career shows him to be, when you look at the evidence, even the publicly available evidence, which I would predict is about 10 or 15% of the incriminating information that the Department of Justice has available.
Really? That's fascinating. You think what they've presented is a very small percentage of what they presented to the public?
I'm saying the DOJ prosecutors have much more than we know. Because listen, we know that they put into the grand jury, for example, Pat Cipollone and Philbin. I want to say Regis Philbin, but I know that's not his first name. The White House counsel and the deputy, Patrick Philbin, the deputy White House counsel. And Pete, they defeated the privileges. I'm teasing this out from the reporting. They defeated the privileges these men offered to the J6 committee, executive privilege, lawyer, client, et cetera. And the J6 committee couldn't defeat them. They don't have a vehicle to challenge them. That's just one example of how there's so much more incriminating information in front of the federal grand jury than the J6 committee ever got out of these witnesses. So Jack Smith will indict these people. My betting limit is $1. I'm not a high roller. I would bet $1 that Jack Smith will indict Trump as part of a conspiracy to commit offenses against or defraud the United States. One of the charges that the J6 committee referred Trump for prosecution on.
I guess my last question would be about that. I talk to you all the time about this, and I love your analysis because I think you have the credibility and you've been right a lot about it. But do you see anybody else out there that's making with similar credibility and similar analysis that's saying something different about what this special prosecutor will come up with in terms of actual indictments? Is there wide disagreement amongst experts, which is pure speculation, I guess, about Jack Smith's case and what he'll do?
I don't think there is a wide divergence of opinion among credible legal analysts, experienced legal analysts who've been in the criminal justice game for a long time. But here's where I think the range is. I am, I'm a hard charger. I was a hard charger as a prosecutor. I was very aggressive, but I also aggressively protected the rights of every defendant I prosecuted because that was my job too. Sometimes I say, I'm kind of just to the left of Vlad the Impaler when it comes to aggressively going after things. I think the spectrum is very aggressively of the opinion that Jack Smith absolutely will indict Trump and company. And then I think there are the wait and see folks who are like, well, it's very hard to take a maiden legal voyage and bring charges against a former president. It's never been done before. So they really want their case buttoned up and bulletproof. And so it's an open question whether they think they'll get there. And I think all of the opinions, on the spectrum are valid and are legitimate. And everybody kind of sees things through their own prism. My prism is a career prosecutor's prison. Remember, I was never smart enough to be a high-level bureaucrat at the Department of Justice. I spent 30 years with my feet in courtrooms in front of juries. That's how I assess the evidence I see. That's why I predict Donald Trump will be indicted.
There you go, ladies and gentlemen. And is it true that your wife calls you hard charger?
Senator, I will neither confirm nor deny.
I don't recall. Fifth, not answering that. None of your business, motherfucker. How about that? Thank you, Glenn Kirschner, as always, for joining me. Always the best. Thank you, sir.
My pleasure, Pete.
All right, there he goes, Glenn Kirschner, everybody. Please go let him know you heard him here on the show, and I always appreciate those shout-outs. And so do the guests and follow him on Twitter. Watch his YouTube channel for more, and always great. Love my conversations and my friendship with Glenn Kirschner, a great guy. And another good friend of mine joining me now. She, of course, can be seen every day pretty much on CNN and as well as Instagram and Twitter, where she's huge, although she kind of criticizes Twitter. She may be out of there pretty soon. I guess we all have to use it for a promotional tool, including her, because she tweets out her daily news articles as well. She's a columnist at the New York Daily News and a contributor to CNN, and she's done pretty much everything and knows pretty much everyone. She's also become a really good friend of mine. We cover a lot of ground right here. I hope that you will go say hi to her on Twitter and Instagram. I think you're really going to like my conversation with S.E. Cupp. And I asked her to reenact the text messaging conversation that we had just before we hooked up online for the interview, because I just thought it was funny. Things get lost in text messaging. And here is what she texted me in the morning. Let's do it.
Hey, I know we're talking at noon, but also, can I nominate you for the #NotAlone challenge?
I mean, I guess, though I'm not sure I need any more challenges right now.
Okay, never mind.
and then scene. And then I was like, no, I was joking. What is it? And then you told me about it, and I want to talk about it. But it was just like, you're so thoughtful, and you just lose so much humor on text. If you had heard me say that, you would have laughed. I was like, I don't know if I need any new challenges. And you would have explained it to me. But because you're being sensitive, you're like, okay, maybe he's got a lot going on right now.
Or, I mean, there was a lot going through my mind. Like, he really doesn't want another task on his to-do list. But also, like, maybe he hates these hashtag challenges.
Oh, wow.
And,
well. Yes.
Doesn't want to participate in, symbolic gestures, which I get. But then when I explained what it was, like something that's important to us both, like mental health, I was like, well, it's a mental health campaign to remind people who may be struggling during the holidays that they're not alone. Like, just nice, really simple.
And then I responded with, no, I'm not for that. I want people to feel very isolated. I am interested, and I want to do it. So I thought we could talk about it and just kind of the issue that it is, because I'm posting this for the day before Christmas Eve, which, of course, just a quick question for you, little S.E. Cupp, and for your son. Is this a time of excitement and joy?
Oh, yeah.
And was it?
He still believes in Santa. I don't know if this will be the last year or not. So
he's 18 years old. It's about time.
Yeah.
You tell him.
He's, there's still a mythology to Christmas and a magic. So it's fun. I'm excited to watch him open presents. And, that's the best part of Christmas for me now as a parent.
Of course. But what about when you were a little girl? Did you get the things you wanted, generally speaking? I got notes. I got notes of rejection from Santa. Seriously.
You did?
Yeah. Sorry, we couldn't get to the Millennium Falcon again.
That's so nice, though.
Shit was like $80, Santa.
Yeah.
Parents didn't have that kind of cash when we were little.
Oh, same. I got a My Little Pony Dream Castle, which was like a big one. It was a big one year. I was super excited. And, my parents set it up. So it was like,
oh yeah. The setup is the thing. And that's fun as a parent too, to do.
Yeah. But, this is so dumb, but what I really wanted as I got older, because I was so into ballet, I wanted money to go to Danskin or Capezio and just get all the leotards and all the ballet shoes and all the tights that I wanted. And I never got that. And obviously I have not forgotten it.
Well, I was going to ask you this at some point, but now is a good segue mainly because of, your Instagram posts, which I love. I love your feed. It's really interesting. You share a lot there, but a lot of stuff is fashion based. Here's what I'm wearing today. And you wear all kinds of unique, I'll say it. What the hell do I know about fashion? But fashionable, unique, cool stuff, including glasses. You just shared an image of all the different pairs of glasses. You like to, do that as well. What is your interest in that? Did it start as a young girl? Both my daughters are actually both big into it. And I wonder how much time, this is what I thought. I wonder how much time she thinks about what she's going to wear. And also, it's not like you're just going to the office. You're also going on TV. So there's another audience that gets to comment. I know they do.
They do. And I really rejected for a long time, especially growing up, any interest in what I was wearing. I really, didn't like how I looked. I had, body issues and just low self-esteem. And then as I got older and more confident and started working as a writer, I really didn't care what I looked like. Then I, was like, listen, I'm a writer. I can go to work in sweatpants, which I didn't do, but a version of that. And when I first got on TV, you had to start thinking about it a little. You had to start thinking about literally what's going to look okay on camera. There are prints that don't work on camera. You can't wear white usually on camera. Then I had to start paying attention. And I've been doing this 20 years. So over the 20 years, add to that red carpets and other appearances. And I've actually gotten really into it. And now I get excited about picking out clothes and looks and glasses and makeup. And I'm not embarrassed by that. It makes me feel good. It makes me feel renewed, like I'm pretending, like I'm someone else, like I'm having fun, and it's not so serious. So I love putting looks together, and you would be horrified to hear how long I spent putting this collection of looks together for a trip I recently took. Oh, it was months. It was months of curating and planning.
Oh, that's kind of part of what sparked my question. Because even when you went to Belgium?
Yeah, Belgium.
You were very public about it on Instagram. Everybody knows you went to Belgium. You had all these, what's the word I want to say? What word would you describe your outfits?
I mean, they were highly curated.
Well, okay, but
looks.
They were highly curated looks. How many nights were you there?
We were 7 days, 6 nights.
Okay, so you had 6 at least night outfits, 6-day outfits. I mean,
that's
wow,
correct. I had 13 outfits.
That's a big bag just for you, I'm guessing.
Yeah, and listen, not all of this was expensive stuff. I do high low, right? Some great classic pieces, but also I mix in some fast fashion.
I wasn't even, but that's okay. All right, cool.
And no, I wanted to capture a vibe while I was on this trip. So this monochrome, monotone vibe. So I did all like neutrals, tans, grays, blacks, creams. And I wanted it simple. And I wanted everything put together so I had a complete look every day. I didn't have to waste any time thinking about what am I wearing today. It was in a bag, literally. Every outfit was in a bag. And I opened it up.
Each outfit like a prepared meal.
Yeah.
But an outfit.
I wanted to not spend time thinking about it, but also feel great when I walked out of, the hotel room, so walking the streets.
I guess my only last question about it that I'm most interested in is the joy that you get out of the creativity and, of course, the wearing and the sharing. That's all worth it to you. You love doing that. It brings you joy in your life.
It does. I mean, it's not like a comparable joy to other things, but it does absolutely.
We're not comparing.
It makes me happy and makes me feel good. And it is creative for me. It's a creative outlet for me, the way like politics and news is just not.
Yeah, no, I hear you. That's why I wanted to ask you about it. I really noticed it over the past.
Well, thanks for noticing.
Yeah, especially in the trip. Other thing I want to ask you about your trip is, did you learn anything were you in Brussels, the capital of the European Union, Brussels, Belgium?
We were in Brussels. We went to Antwerp and Bruges, and we took a day trip to Amsterdam as well.
Oh, you did? Okay. Did you learn anything? Did you meet anybody interesting?
We met a bunch of people, and when you go without kids, you can have that adult time and meet adults in a different way. When you travel with kids, you're by a pool and you meet other parents and you talk about kids, and it's different. So John and I, met some really interesting people, some people that like I had worked with previously from CNN, really funny. And every time we take a trip like that, we meet someone that we end up keeping in touch with. And, years ago, we took a trip to Paris. We met this guy and his girlfriend. They are now married. We know their kid. Like, it's fun to do that. And so, yeah, we did. We met some fun people.
I love that. That's great. That's great that you're that couple. My parents always did that. And Val and I feel like, yeah, we've met some people on trips that we've kept in touch with, but not trying to think anybody that we really connected with, or they were.
Is it because you don't want to, or like
people don't like us?
Okay.
So moving on. Speaking of people, I got it. I got the perfect segue. Speaking of people, that people don't like, a person people don't like. And basically, this is what you wrote in your piece, your most recent piece in the Daily News. And I'm going to come back to You're Not Alone. We'll end on it. Mike Pence is a man without a prayer of winning is the title of this column at the Daily News. And you write in this, I brought notes.
Can I just stop you really quick? Because I didn't write that headline. My original headline, which paints a better picture, I think, was Mike Pence has no friends. And
well, in the I like their headline too, because it kind of points out how religious he is. But I also in the piece you write, who are Mike Pence's friends? Yeah. And so when you're talking about meeting people on your trip, and and jokingly we don't, but like I was going to say who likes the Pences but I'm sure a lot of people because he's a powerful guy. But who are his friends in terms of that would help him become the president? I think is what you're getting to.
Yeah. And listen, people do like the Pences. If you ask people, and Politico just had a really long feature that got to this. If you ask people close to them, they like them. But to your point, it's who are his allies and his natural voter base. And he doesn't have one because he's not defined a lane. He was very loyal to Trump during the Trump administration to the point that conservatives, and certainly never Trump conservatives, didn't recognize the one-time deficit hawk and religious family values guy. Like, who is this guy that's suddenly okay with Trump's agenda, which is like an abandonment of basically all of Mike Pence's prior agenda? And
other than those judges,
so for judges and, moving the Israeli embassy and, I won't say small things. Those are not small things, but to many of us, he threw his principles out the window to defend the number one guy which I guess is the job of the number 2 guy, but you also have the chance to say no to the guy that you thought was going to be really bad for the country. He said yes. And so for folks like me, maybe moderate Republicans, center-right Republicans, never Trumpers, he's an absolute no. He is an unprincipled sellout no. Then you've got the MAGA crowd. Well, we know how they feel about Mike Pence because they chanted it as they walked up to the Capitol. They wanted to hang him. And they still think he's a traitor. So who does that leave? Like, who is clamoring for more Mike Pence? I just don't know. And I'm not being snarky about it. I'm asking a genuine question. Who's he running for?
Well, I don't know who's going to give him money, donor-wise. His wealthy donors, much less smaller donors, because, and the other thing is, who knows what Trump, I'll ask you about this next, but where he's at with his digital trading cards and that TV sales pitch that he did. But in your piece, you also remind us that it's on the record. We have this on the record. Trump, I guess it was on or around January 6th, he referred to Mike Pence as a trigger warning, bad language. He referred to Mike Pence as a pussy. Like, Trump called him a pussy, and that it matters a lot because that's what Trump thinks of him, and unless he's calculated something different about how Pence is valuable to him. But it's crazy.
It makes Pence sound delusional when he says, like, we parted amicably. No, you didn't. You definitely did not.
That's right.
And when he tries to, like, briefly criticize the president, but he won't say if he's, like, fit to be president again. And he says he's really proud of working for the president, but that no one who believes that the Constitution should be terminated should be president. But I'm not sure if I'm going to run, but I'm sure there are better people than Trump. But I mean, it's absolutely pleasing everyone, pleasing no one, splitting the baby, all the having the cake and eating it too, all the metaphors. And I just don't think it adds up to, like, success for Mike Pence.
It's the only piece I needed to really read about Mike Pence, and I think it's all we need to hear about him, which is I want to move on to one more guy I'd like to move past, but you've written about recently, and it matters. Donald Trump, is he becoming boring? You wrote. He also talked about Trump's Constitution contempt at the Daily News. You've been talking about these issues, of course, on CNN as well, and how a lot of Republicans were kind of looking the other way on Trump saying, throw out the Constitution, do a revote, we don't need it, and a lot of people just looking the other way. So just where is he now? Add into the mix the NFT thing that he did, and it doesn't seem like a great start for his third run.
Well, no, and the boring part comes when you look at, like, who tuned in for his announcement that he's running for president again. That's a big deal. And no major network even carried it in its entirety. Like, even Fox dumped in and out of this announcement. And I think it's just, whether you like him or not, like, he's become probably the worst thing he could become to him, which is boring. We know what to expect. We've seen behind the curtain. We know how this all goes. It's not thrilling anymore. It's not even, like, amusing. And so I don't know that, like, there's the titillation that sustained so much of the interest in Trump that got him elected, and then the enthusiasm that carried his base. I know he still has fans, but the interest, I think, is just waning. He's no longer interesting. Let
me try this on you real quick. We'll be done with him. He created a persona, an archetype that others have tried to step into, from Carrie Lake to Ron DeSantis, in terms of the way you talk to and about the media. You give them the middle finger, and in terms of a lot of different behaviors, in terms of tweeting, in terms of questioning reality, in Carrie Lake's case with the election in Arizona. And a lot of other people have stepped into this. And we've seen these characters on stage at Charlie Kirk's stupid gathering over the past few days. There's other people doing the Trump act as a comedian. I mean, it's a perfect comparison. Other people are doing his act, and they're filling that space. They're saying horrible things about trans people and gay people and minorities and all of that. And so Trump's bits, they're gone. He's boring, and other people have stepped into it and filled that void. That's my thought and where we're at right now.
I think that's a really interesting take, and that it's diluted him a bit. All this saturation, not just him completely saturating, our airspace. But you're right, all the copycats.
And he keeps losing, SC, to some extent. He lost the election, and the people that he endorsed elect. And you said the worst thing you can become is he could become as boring, but he would also argue is a loser, and he keeps losing. So that hurts a brand.
Absolutely. You would think so. Republicans didn't care when he lost the House and the Senate, and a lot of them didn't care when he lost the White House. They pretended he didn't, actually. And some of them want him to run again. So, yes, losing is now fully his brand. And there's no getting away from that. That's just the math of it. You wonder if Republicans are going to actually consider winning again and whether that should matter as a calculation, because owning the libs seems to have been what mattered most. Winning elections to implement policy and then govern from a conservative principled position did not matter at all over the past 6 years.
I would also, I use the phrase that's exact same definition owning the libs is, and because I see this in my daily life, is being a dick.
Yeah.
There's something really great about being a dick. And women can be a dick too. I prefer to call, when women are being dicks, assholes. That's my general term of art. I describe that woman. Why are you being an asshole right now, lady?
Yeah.
But there's this attitude of that people can behave that way, and it's not only acceptable, but it's encouraged. And that is a huge part of the now Republican brand. Fair to say?
100%. The cruelty is the point.
Yeah.
Calling out your enemies is much more important than identifying friends.
Yep.
Calling out heretics more important than identifying converts. We once wanted a big tent. Now we don't. We want the most condensed version of Trumpism. And if you fall out of these parameters, you're insufficiently Trumpy, and therefore, Liz Cheney, Adam Kinzinger, you should be banished. I mean, it's crazy and mathematically doesn't make a lot of sense and is an abandonment of principles, all the things. And I don't know. I don't know if they're going to keep trying that.
Wanted to ask you about social media, and you're really good and big. You're big. You're big on Twitter. Let's see. What do you got? Jesus, almost 500,000 followers on Twitter. You're huge on Instagram as well. Let me get your Instagram up. And I want to know, how you're seeing things play out on Twitter and what your thoughts are on what's happened with Elon Musk's, quote, leadership.
I secretly hope that Twitter collapses because I don't like being on there.
Oh, really? Oh.
Yeah, I don't like it at all.
Oh.
It's not fun. There was a time when ignoring the trolls or the assholes was easy because there was so much other benefit to it. You had great conversations with people, you met new people, and you learn new things. Now that's like the side dish, and the entree is the trolls, the disinformation, the bots, the cyberbullying. So it's not worth it. I have to be on it because I have to share, my writing and the stuff that I'm working on to my employers. That's important. And I have to read my colleagues' stuff and I have to find it. And it's still a good news aggregator, but I secretly hope it just collapses on itself. And I'm looking at new ones like Mastodon and Post to see if those might be a better experience.
Have you tried any of them? I've tried them and I just can't get it up for them. I'm like, here I go. I'm going to go Mastodon.
I know. I feel the same. I'm working on it.
The way I wish it did. Nobody likes me here.
Yeah. Look,
where is everybody?
We haven't found another thing yet. I'm really surprised actually Facebook and Meta didn't come up with something the second this all started to disintegrate. I
was thinking too, yeah.
I won't be sad. I won't be sad if Twitter completely goes away.
All right, let's talk about the You're Not Alone challenge. Oh, wait, before that, you shared a video on Instagram from your home that a small bird got into your home somehow, in your living room.
Yeah.
In that video, I should just play it, but you politely asked the bird to leave, which I thought was hilarious.
Yeah.
You
never know. Sometimes that could work.
it was done very politely, like can you leave, please? Which I thought in the end still was a little bit rude. Oh, here it is. I'll play it.
Well, last time it took me like,
Oop.
he's gonna fly into things, he's gonna get hurt. Oh, it's so cute.
Hey, can you leave?
Carolina Red.
And okay, you asked it. There's a lot going on here, but you asked the bird to leave. We also get to see, is that your living room? It's wonderful, the wallpaper. We see the bird. We hear, it turns out it's your husband who can identify any bird. I heard him. It's a Carolina Wren. I'm like, who is this guy? And what do you have to say for yourself and that bird in the end?
Yeah, so we have a wreath on the front door like most people do, and birds like to nest in there. So I open the front door and two of them actually fly in.
Oh, really?
Yeah, one immediately flies out.
Yeah.
Was like, I like saw the taxidermy on the walls and was like, I am leaving this joint. We have like a stuffed.
Oh my God, that's Brian's head.
Yeah. Why are my friends in here? So one left immediately. The other, I feel like wanted to move in. He was going from like perch to perch. He was on the deer head. He was on picture frames. He was on the bookshelves. At one point, he was on top of the Christmas tree. And bless his heart. And my husband can identify literally any bird. And I don't know why I needed to know that it was a Carolina Wren. I should have been like, irrelevant. Who cares?
Wait, did you ask what kind it was, or did he just submit and volunteer that information?
Oh, no, he just submitted.
I was going to say, like, if
declared.
I was going to be so angry with him if he didn't, if you know those types of things and you're so modest that you wouldn't submit that information given the opportunity, that's quite a man or a person. I should say.
He offered it. He's excited when that happens.
Yeah. Oh, wow. Well,
yeah, but in the end, it was just good old fashioned, like flailing around to try and get it to go and out the door. I mean, there was no real trick to it.
Can you just, for viewers, can you flail around one more time and make a bird noise, or is that beneath you?
I didn't make a bird noise.
No, I would like you to just
add.
I would like you to add into your impression of the bird leaving just a squawk of some sort, a chirp. Can you do any impression of a bird?
I will, but just for accuracy's sake, I want to be clear. This is not what I did. But yes.
I just wanted to see if you could improv that, and you went with tweet, 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 folks, for the record.
Tweet.
This is why it's so much fun to talk with you. You could talk thoughtfully about just about anything, and we can always be ridiculous as well. All right. So speaking of which, thoughtfully, you're not alone challenge. We started the conversation talking about it. What is this, and what do I have to do, and what's the purpose?
Well, thanks for slotting this into your busy day, but so the Not Alone Challenge is started by Jewel, and around the holidays, it can be a tough time for people, and especially if you're struggling with mental health. And I mean, even not around the holidays.
Yeah,
I know, because I've been open about my mental health. You can feel very alone in that sometimes,
sure, yeah.
Even though other people are going through it. I know I have support. It still can feel isolating and alone to feel the way you do. In my case, with anxiety, maybe in someone else's case with depression.
Add the pandemic, which takes many of us who I love being around people. I love people. I've never loved huge crowds, concerts and stuff like that necessarily. I'm not opposed to it. But now it's like, do I really want to go out and risk getting ill? That creates loneliness for people who do like to be social. I'm sorry to interrupt, but go ahead.
Yes. No, there's so many factors going on right now. I mean, you can add politics and political division into it too.
Yeah. Do I really want to hang out with these people? Exactly.
And literally families feel like they can't talk to each other in some cases.
Sure.
So there's a lot going on. And listen, hashtag activism gets poo-pooed a lot. And, I understand it's not everything. It's not the only thing we should do, but I think it is a nice message.
Yeah.
That, I'm going through it too. And I see you, I hear you, believe me, I know what you're going through, and you aren't alone. And I just want people to know that. So I'm going to post later today and then nominate you to do the same. You never know who it's going to reach, Pete. And for all the people that don't need to see it, don't care, think it's stupid, you might reach one person who thinks that was really good to hear and good to know, you know?
I love it, and I'm into it, and I'm actually going to call out. I'm going to say someone's actual name. I'm going to just say Eric. So that like a bunch of Erics will be like, he sees me, like the romper room lady did my brother when we got out of the bathtub when we were little, and he ran out thinking romper room lady saw him naked. But I know I'm not going to do that. I totally love this idea, and I don't mind the hashtag activism. It doesn't annoy me as much as I get it, because like you said, there's more to it. It creates awareness around anything, and everybody feels this way at some point, as you articulated, especially now. So I'm into it, and I'll be looking forward to your video and making mine. Somehow I'll be able to squeeze it in my very busy.
Well, I think it's also important, Pete. It was important for me to nominate a guy. It's important for me that. Oh,
am I your sole nominee?
Well, I have two nominees, you and another woman, but I really wanted to nominate a guy.
I'm very flattered.
Especially a guy who, cares about mental health, gets it. You've been honest about mental health as well.
As much as possible. Maybe too much. No, and
you've been so helpful in platforming some of my, feelings on it. And so it was important to me because I want other people to see from a man too, where there's just an added layer of stigma around mental health. So I think it's really important, and I appreciate it.
Yeah. And I also just love talking about it with anybody, especially other men. What are you dealing with? What are your anxieties? What are your challenges right now? I do a lot of that, and it's fascinating to me, and I learn a lot. Often I'm the one learning, and from how they're dealing with stuff, how they're handling things. And it's super helpful. And to me, it's just so much more rich than conversations about more superficial things like sports.
Yeah.
Thank you very much, as always, for joining me. I hope that your family has a wonderful, exciting Christmas while the myth still endures. Yeah. And I hope that you will write a column about what happens when it all comes crashing down, won't you?
Oh, I'm sure I will. I'm sure I will, because it's
tough. It can be hard because you're like, it's a little conflicting. I remember I found out I asked my mom while she was sitting on the can when I was 9. She was in the bathroom, and I yelled to her, "Is Santa real?" And she just yelled out while she was in the bathroom, "No." Anything else? I was like, "Oh, that's how you didn't say, let's talk about it." You didn't. She's going to be horrified that I just shared that. She listens.
Well, I remember I asked my mom around 8, 9. I was like, "Mom, tell me straight.
Yeah.
Is Santa real?" And she's like, "Do you really want to know?" And I was like, "I can handle it."
Yeah.
And of course I wanted her to say yeah.
Yeah.
But she said, "Okay, he's not." And I was devastated. As strong as I thought I was not.
Hardest part for me, and I didn't add the follow-up, but I probably was thinking it because I knew I didn't want to sound too dumb. But hardest part for me of the whole thing coming undone was I was like, no flying reindeer, no flying reindeer. That was tough for me. I wanted those reindeer to fly.
The whole thing was a lie. None of it was true.
Well, I'm looking forward to that for you.
Okay.
Because you'll write about it, and it'll be awesome, and it'll be helpful. Because you're not alone with that either.
Fact.
Thank you, S.E. Cupp.
All right. Thanks, Pete. Have a great holiday.
You too.
All right. There she goes, S.E. Cupp. Say hi to her on Twitter, on Instagram, and wherever else. On the street. If you see her on the street, just don't be weird. And you're listening to the new single from Harborcoat. It's Valley Winter Song, and our good friend Matt Carlson lead vocals on this, and acoustic guitar as well. I don't think John Carroll will mind us playing Matty C's song, Valley Winter Song. I love it. You can go buy it right now. Go to harborcoat.bandcamp.com. I'll link to it in the show notes. This is a great song. I hope you have a great weekend. Merry Christmas, everybody. Take it away, Maddie.
It's coming soon.